Hi everyone, it's Mike Putman. I'm a rheumatologist at the Medical College of Wisconsin. I'm reporting to you from ACR Convergence 2025 for Rheum Now. Now today I want to talk about an abstract that is actually coming in a couple days, but in the morning report, Brian England gave an amazing year in review. And as part of that, he mentioned a drug that I bet many of you have not heard yet, Nerandomilast. So Nerandomilast is a new drug. It's a PDE4B inhibitor that is targeting the lungs for patients with interstitial lung disease. Now, they're going to report some of the efficacy data of this on Monday. It's abstract 1662, but I want to give you a little preview because you probably don't know much about this drug yet. Now, this drug, like I said, was a novel PDE4B inhibitor, and it was actually designed specifically to try to target these folks with interstitial lung disease. Now, you may not have heard because we're rheumatologists, but this has already made waves on the pulmonary side. In October of 2025, it was approved for idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, or IPF. Not a lot of rheumatologists are treating IPF. Very difficult disease, very hard to treat, and that was reflected in the trial that informed that approval. The trial was called FIBRONEER-ILD, and patients in that study who got Nerandomilast experienced maybe 50 to 75 milliliters of less worsening of their FVC over 52 weeks. Not a lot to write home about. If you think about the FVC of the lungs is about 2,000 at baseline, it's kind of a small difference, and that's kind of reflected in the patient's experience. Didn't seem to improve dyspnea, cough, or fatigue scores. So, you see that and you say, that's not very exciting, but this is a very refractory, very scary disease, and I think because of that, we are all grateful for another agent. I mean, thus far, the really only other approvals were the antifibrotics, nintedanib and pirfenidone. Now, why am I talking about an ILD drug? At the same time that they ran their IPF study, they also ran a study called FIBRONEER-ILD. And that study looked into patients with progressive fibrosing interstitial lung disease, and it was open to patients who had autoimmune diseases like us. Fully 325 patients in that study had some form of autoimmune lung disease, and that study also met its primary endpoint. So this is kind of exciting, and I think this is going to be a thing in the field of rheumatology as well. Because of how sick those folks were, they progressed even more, and there was actually a little bit bigger of a delta between the people who got the drug, Nerandomilast, and the people who got placebo, about 75 milliliters of FVC. Similar to the IPF study, there was no improvement in dyspnea scores, fatigue scores, cough scores, little things here and there, but nothing to write home about. So that's all kind of ho-hum, right? Another drug, we're sort of excited about that, kind of along the lines of nintedanib and pirfenidone, but in the FIBRONEER-ILD study, they actually observed a relatively large difference in mortality. So the people who got the high dose of the drug, 18 milligrams, they had a rate of mortality of around 6%, placebo group around 12% over 1 year. To put that in perspective, there are few things in rheumatology that work that well. Beta blockers and statins and all that stuff, none of that has that high of a mortality benefit over 1 year. Now, in the paper itself, they didn't bring out the autoimmune people, so we didn't really know whether this applied to the autoimmune folks that we're going to be treating. And that's the data that I'm hoping to see in a couple days. It's also kind of peculiar to say that we have a drug that marginally improved FVC, didn't really improve quality of life in any substantial way, but somehow had a large benefit to mortality. I'm kind of wondering if as we parse this data, we'll see that that was maybe not quite as borne out as we would expect, but I would certainly hope so. This is a group of patients that very much needs a new drug and a new mechanism, and if this is better tolerated than the antifibrotics we currently have and actually has a benefit to mortality, I could see this being a big thing in your clinic. So keep a close eye on this space. I think there's going to be a lot coming out in the next bit about this. Thanks so much for tuning into our coverage, and have a great day.